Hello my lovelies, my name is Stephanie and welcome back to my YouTube channel. And in today's video I am talking about the fact that I went back to university as a mature master's student. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, I actually ended up dropping out of university during my bachelor's degree. And while I shared some of the details in a video on this channel entitled I Was Outed at University, which I will link just above, I didn't share all of them. After I was outed at university, I became the victim of physical, verbal and sexual assault whilst on campus. And it's an experience I've been very guarded about. I share lots of things about myself and it's actually how I draw boundaries. I overshare about things that I'm comfortable with and I don't share things that I'm uncomfortable with, but because people assume I'm an oversharer because I overshare about the things that I'm happy to do with, they never ask, they never pry, which is always great for me because it means I can lock certain things behind different boundaries. But long story short, I was doing a bachelor's degree in fashion. My aspiration was to go into the fashion industry. I really wanted to be a textile conservator, which is basically someone who works with antique, vintage, sometimes ancient textiles, conserves them, things like tapestry, things like the Raphael cartoons, things like the Bacton altar cloth, you know. So a textile conservator is really there to conserve historic textiles and historic garments. Things like fabric manuscripts and things like that also go through textile conservation because they were often printed on cotton or occasionally gold and so that was what I was doing my undergraduate degree in and my Bachelor's of Arts in. And when I dropped out after I was outed and assaulted, I come from a very low socioeconomic background. You know, I grew up on a council estate, my parents still live there. And so the really hard thing for me was that I knew that if I left university, I would never be able to return because I would honestly never be able to afford to self-fund. And because I had taken 2 years of my finance already, I couldn't then get a further 2 years. I couldn't then get a new 3 years of finance because I left in my second year. So it was a really, really difficult decision for me. And I felt like such a failure after I left, after I had decided to make the choice to focus on my transition and to recover from my assault. And that was a really, really difficult thing for me to decide to do. That was really, really hard. However, I then went into my career. I started working at the Tate Galleries as the Tate Galleries' youngest retail manager. I then went off to work at the Science Museum. I then went to Shakespeare's Globe, although I was offered a job at the National Archives at the same time. So at the Science Museum I was retail team lead. I went to Shakespeare's Globe, I became the visitor operations manager, and then after Shakespeare's Globe I began working for Queer Britain. Queer Britain was the UK's first LGBTQ plus museum that I helped to open, and following on from the opening of Queer Britain, I received a lot of press and a lot of opportunities, and one of the opportunities was that my old university, the one that I had previously dropped out of, got back in touch with me and wanted me to be involved as an alum. And I said to them, I was like, you know, I'm really grateful for you thinking of me, but unfortunately I don't feel comfortable doing this because I never graduated and therefore I'm not an alum. And I know that technically I'm an alum because I went there like anyway, but it didn't feel like the right fit because I wasn't a graduate of that university. And this then led into some kind of open conversations with my current university, talking about, you know, what had happened and how it wasn't addressed at the time and how I was very private about it at the time, and the ways in which I dealt with it at the grand old age of 19, which is not, you know, the way that I would have dealt with it now. And we kind of got to talking and things like that. And they invited me to return to the university on a Masters of Arts degree, specialising in arts management and cultural events, which is very much what I had done in my career up until that point. And so for me, it was kind of this really validating experience, because I genuinely thought that not having a degree and dropping out of my degree was something I would carry with me for the rest of my life and probably regret for the rest of my life. And so when they got back in touch with me and they said, you know, they first wanted me to come back as an alum, then they wanted me to come back as a student. It kind of seemed like a perfect opportunity. I was really struggling at Queer Britain because I was overworking myself so much, and I wasn't really getting on with the director, and there were several other people there who weren't getting on with the director, but unfortunately when you don't get on with the director, that is not ideal because they're at the very top of the hierarchical chain, but that's fine. And so I left my role at Queer Britain thinking I was going to start my masters in the September of 2022. However, the course wasn't run in 2022 due to some budgetary restraints, and so they said, we'd love to welcome you back next year. But having already left my role at Queer Britain, I then went into like a massive panic attack of, oh my god, what do I do? So I then went on to work for the Victoria and Albert Memorial Museum here in London, opening one of their recently refurbished sites, the Young V&A, which used to be the V&A Museum of Childhood. And then whilst I was working at the Victoria and Albert Memorial Museum, I was also the duty building operations manager for the Royal Albert Hall, delivering things like the BBC Proms residency, the Drag Race UK season 4 tour dates, lots of fun things. And I think what's really interesting is on this channel I haven't shared a huge amount about my career outside of Queer Britain, but for those of you who don't know, I wanted to obviously be a textile conservator when I was, you know, younger, and I've always loved museums, I've always loved history, and I've always loved heritage, so the idea of working in a museum or an art gallery kind of felt like a really natural fit for me. And so when I got that job at the Tate Galleries when I was 19 years old, that management job at the Tate Galleries when I was 19, well, for those of you who think I'm not qualified or good at my job, or have a job. So that's kind of how I got my start, and that's what I was doing. So when the opportunity to go back to university came up, and it was specifically in arts management, cultural events, I was like, oh my god, this would really underpin the foundation of my career. My career has been very privileged, but I do often feel a huge amount of imposter syndrome because I don't have higher education, because I never went through that kind of pathway. And so it kind of felt like a really good fit for me at the time. The year that the degree was meant to start kind of spiraled for me because I was out of work, and then I was in work, and then I had 2 jobs, and then I publicly spoke out against the director of the V&A after he did some transphobic things, and so it was a very kind of strange array of things, I would say, happening. And then I started my Master of Arts in September 2023. I got quite poorly in October 2023. I tried to commit suicide. I had a really bad episode of depression, so I kind of worked through that with my course leaders. So yeah, I wanted to make this video because I wanted to share with you this kind of more full circle moment. I think it'll be more of a full circle moment when I graduate in the future, which I don't know, maybe I'll film, who knows. But I wanted to share what I've been up to and why I had taken so much time off my channel, and it's because I was due to start a master's after opening the UK's first LGBTQ+ museum, and then the master's was cancelled, and I got depressed, and then I was going from job to job. And so now I am back. I am studenting full-time. My master's is full-time. I'm currently working on some fun theoretical critical analysis. I'm currently doing some fun theoretical analysis of various arts institutions here in London. I did one in Scotland because I've always wanted to move to Scotland. And so that's kind of what's going on with me at the moment. That's what's happening in my life. I'm very, very pleased to be doing my master's. Not having a bachelor's is something that has kind of haunted me for a really long time. And I had initially thought about not sharing any of this with anybody until I graduated, until it was finalised. But then I decided, you know, screw that. I am allowed to share this kind of like journey, this like part way through with you lovely humans on my channel. So yeah, that's what I wanted to share with you. If you follow me on Instagram, then I had started to post some kind of fun TikToks about like the day in the life of being a student in London.
Well, hello there and welcome to day 3 of being a mature student here in London, and it is field trip day. I'm so excited, and you know what that means, standing awkwardly on a tube platform with this weird face because I don't know how to behave in social situations. Anyway, so we got onto the District line and then we happened to get off at Blackfriars. That was our first stop of the day, and we had to say goodbye to our tube carriage. Goodbye, tube carriage. And our first stop of the day was actually St Paul's Cathedral, built by Sir Christopher Wren in between 1675 and 1710. And walking into the space was truly phenomenal. I mean, this building is awe-inspiring. I mean, you can see me right there. This dome is the largest self-supporting dome here in Europe, and it's actually built on the site of the original spire, which was struck by lightning in the 15th century. Then I went down to the crypt and tried on hats that were definitely children's-sized. And then I saw my favourite piece of the day, Mother and Child by Henry Moore. I love Henry Moore. And then we were on to the Tate Modern. Tate Modern was the next stop of the day. But before we got there, we got to meet the amazing chewing gum artist who works on the Millennium Bridge. So we went into Tate Modern and we got to see some amazing pieces of art. We did some investigation for our course. This is Gorilla Girls just here. And then this is one of their digital collection pieces as part of their permanent collection. And then on the roof there was a rainbow, which was so cute. And then I went down to the shop and I sat in this weird circular donut. And then I had a chicken nugget shaped like a heart. And then we went outside and there was someone making bubbles. It was so fun. Then we went to Shakespeare's Globe, and that was a very quick stop for us before working our way up the South Bank. For London Design Week, we got to see this amazing pavilion, which is just next to the Oxo Tower. And then we capped off the day at the National Theatre, where I definitely drank too much alcohol and then walked home across the bridge. And that's day 3 of being a mature student.
But then I got really sick and I got depressed, and so I kind of stopped making those, which makes me sad because I wanted to do them kind of every day. But they got quite boring. It was very much like, hi, I went to class, and then I came back from class, and then I went to bed. So that was a bit weird. So that's why those stopped. But I'm still at university. I'm still doing my master's degree. My studies are going well. I'm enjoying some of my classes. I would say that it's much more theoretical than I would have liked, but that's mostly because my kind of initial degree was so creative, and then my career has been so practical and operational that the idea of doing something analytical and theoretical is kind of alien to me. And then I'm dyslexic, and so I really struggle with kind of critical analysis in terms of academic writing, but that's where I've been. That's what I'm doing. Hopefully this time next year I shall be Stephanie Lynette MA. I don't know why I said it all like that. But that's where I've been, that's what I've been up to, and I really wanted to share that with you. I know this video probably isn't everyone's cup of tea. It's very not about me being a trans person on the internet, and it's very much about my life and my career outside of me being a trans person on the internet. But I hope you enjoyed it anyway. I hope it gave you maybe a little bit more of an insight into who I am as a person. And I will see you next week for another video. I hope you're having a lovely day. I hope you're avoiding transphobia. And I'm just going to say bye now because I've talked a lot about university. Bye.